We'll get started. If you'll bow with me, lead us in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today, and thanks for all your many blessings. We thank you for all the good things you do for us, Lord, and give you all the praise and glory for it. We pray that you would give us wisdom and guidance, Lord, as we seek to serve you and the people of the state of Mississippi. Pray that you would give us wisdom and guidance as we seek to make Mississippi a better place. We pray that you would forgive us of our sins, forgive us where we fail you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And if you'll remain standing for the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for coming to our Propane Summit. And again, just as a reminder, the genesis of these summits are when we took office, people calling in with questions and concerns about different aspects of what they consider utilities. So that prompted us to start having these summits to educate people, educate us, and to figure out ways that we can help to work together to make government work better for the citizens of Mississippi. So, Commissioner Carr, you have any opening remarks?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Stamps is not able to be with us. He's actually speaking at another engagement. So we'll get started right off the bat, a little ahead of schedule. Mr. Cuevas. Floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dreams and passion. I'm going to step back to the 70s. I can remember as a young boy playing in the yard. Everyone has a dream. Well, mine was riding my bike, acting like I was delivering gas.
Is that
around
you?
in my yard. No, I wish, but it's not. I even went as far as, if you can remember, a siphon hose. We all used to have some laying around in the back of the truck. I rolled one up, tied on the back of my bike. So as I rode around in my yard, I would undo my hose and pump each customer. I watched every time that the gas man came to my house. It enthused me. I watched every move he made. And one of the things that just amazed me the most was when he released the gas, and then when he went back to his truck, and he stamped that little ticket. I thought that was something. Come to find out it was nothing no more than a stamp. Well, in 1986, I had my first venture into propane gas. My office was a 1978 Ford 700 double-barrel truck. These trucks at the time they was made was used to haul butane gas and propane gas. There was no air brakes. It was all hydraulic. So that meant when you backed up and you stopped, you better jump out, run, put your chalk blocks out as quick as you could. The springs were very light. Going down the road, you thought you was riding down a pig trail. Well, my computer was a Rolodex. My iPhone was a beeper and an open wave radio. My primary job as a gas driver was to solicit new accounts. I was responsible for my accounts receivable and providing the best service that I could. In order to get this job, it was back then, I had about a 50-question test to take, and I had to ride about 2 weeks with a seasoned driver. Once I completed that, you was on the road servicing customers. Since then, I have been in the industry for 39 years, becoming a branch manager after being a driver, owning my own gas company. And then being hired to the State Fire Marshal's office as an inspector, then been promoted to the LC Gas Director. So, in reality, I've been around the world in the gas company, gas industry. On behalf of the Mississippi Fire Marshal's office, the LC Gas Division, I want to thank the commissioners for giving us this opportunity to come out and to share our responsibilities, our missions, and what makes up the propane industry. I do want to go back. When I was driving that truck, this is the updated trucks. They do have air brakes. They do have computers in them. And they're fixed to the max. It's just nice. Anyway, on behalf the LC Gas Division of the State Fire Marshal's office is part of the Mississippi Insurance Department. Commissioner Mike Cheney appoints me, and he also appoints our commissioners. We have Mr. Braxton Coombs, which is a speaker here today with District 1. Mr. Vernon Greenley, if you'll look up on our map, is in District 2. Mr. Ben is in District 3. Mr. David Reynolds is District 4. Mr. Mike Graham is at large. Mr. Mark McDaniels is at large. And also, Mr. Rob Love, which is a speaker here today and chairman of our board, is also at large. If you'll notice, each one of them districts is by congressional. Our LC division is also made up with 7 inspectors. We have Territory 1, we have 11 counties that inspector is covering. Territory 2, that inspector's covering over 13 counties. That's over toward the Delta. Territory 3, we have an open slot there right now, and that county covers 11 counties. Territory 4, we have 11 counties. Territory 5 goes from one side of the state to the other side, covering 12 counties. Territory 6, 13 counties. And Territory 7 has 11 counties. The mission of the liquid compressed gas is to enforce the laws and to regulate compressed gas located within the state of Mississippi. The LC Gas Division is responsible for all domestic, commercial, industrial premises or buildings where liquid compressed gas may be received, stored, transported, sold, offered, or exposed for sale, manufactured, refined, distilled, compounded, or blended, as well as many liquefied compressed gas containers, systems, pumps, and equipment. Tank cars, storage tanks, or other vehicles in which any liquid compressed gas is stored will be subject to regular inspections under this program. The Mississippi LC Board Commission has adopted our laws, and on their adoption, they adopted NFPA 54 and NFPA 58 with some Mississippi rules to regulate our industry. Now, every 3 to 4 years, one of these books are renewed, so you can see right on our screen, NFPA 58 has just came out. Our board adopts the new edition immediately as soon as it comes out. And I'm going to tell you, this keeps us on our toes with the many updates and changes that are made in there that we have to enact and enforce immediately. Many of our surrounding states are still 10 plus years behind these additions right here. I would like to commend our board for their dedication and commitment to this industry. The board has been so supportive in providing funds, resources, labor, supplies to make what we have the best training facilities around. Many states are looking at what the board has provided and accomplished with our training programs to duplicate what we're offering. Back many years ago, the LC Gas Division was up under the Mississippi Tax Division. There were approximately 20 inspectors per division. This was about 4 counties per inspector. The LC Gas Division was then moved to the Mississippi Insurance Department and up underneath the Mississippi State Fire Marshal's office, where now we average in about 11 counties per inspector. I would like to give you a rundown and a total of the workload that falls under our responsibilities in 2023 for the LC Gas Division. We received 9,253 new LC gas installation forms in our office. We inspected over 2,606 of these. The LC Gas Division condemned 126 of them. I want to say about 30 of them were schools. Keep in mind, when I read these numbers out to you, in 2023, we were shorthanded. We had 3 inspectors and myself trying to make every one of these inspections. We were also tasked with special projects like the state fair and other projects of this nature. We made over 461 inspections doing that. And let me see, I can get my paper and get it caught up to where I believe it's back. I'm not sure. Should be where my chart. I'll go ahead to the chart. We are required at least once a year Mississippi has 456 buck plants. We inspected 263 of them, which was 58%. We have 474 bobtail trucks. We inspected 212 of them, which was 48%. We have 152 schools. We inspected 147 of them, and that's 96%. But I do want to emphasize with our schools, some of the things that we are challenged with is if a school's on natural gas, they're not under this inspection requirement. So some schools that have dual fuel are wondering why we're doing this. Next thing is some of the gases, we can only do these inspections during the month of July. That is when the schools are out. We don't want no kids around. And then bids are placed usually in July. We are working with the Department of Education now to get a better handle on how to get quicker bidding process. So at one time this summer, we was July the 28th, or the week of school starting back, still out inspecting schools. Anyway, if you add all these up at this point here, this gave us 4,109 inspections for 2023 with about 4 people running this. We're also responsible for audits and branch visits. We have 194 branches scattered out through the state of Mississippi. We averaged visiting 175 of them a month. In a year, that would give us 2,328. Go to the next one, I think. Let me see how I find it. That gives us, that gives us 2,328 visits. This year, here, our board permitted 51 new companies coming in 2023. We tested new employees of 125 people. Just like everyone else, turnover rates is pretty high. We was blessed to be able to train 380 people running through our training courses this past year. We fielded probably almost 10,000 calls for the year, and that is taking complaints, inspections, that's dealers calling us, whatnot else. Our LC Gas Board also adopted during 58 our training, our qualifications of what it takes for someone to be in the LC Gas. Let me see, I think I got it. I don't know where it went. Anyway, its qualifications of personnel, 4.1, 4.1, persons whose duties fall within the scope of this code shall provide all training that is consistent with the scope of their job activities that include proper handling and emergency responsibilities for procedures. 4.4.2, persons whose primary duties include transportation, LP gas, transferring liquid gas into or out of stationary containers, or making stationary installations shall complete training that include the following: safe workplace, the healthy and safe hazards of LP, emergency response procedure, supervised on-job training, and an assessment of the person's ability to perform the duties of his assigned task. 4.4.3, refresher training shall be provided every 3 years. 4.4.4, initial and subsequent refresher training shall be documented. In this training that the LC Gas Board adopted, there is over 77 different training modules and 15 different certified exams to meet our needs in the industry. We are able to take a job, a certain job, and build a learning path to meet our qualifications on 54 and 58. This has been a great tool that has helped us to bring more professional and educational training to the industry. The LC Gas Division was very fortunate when Commissioner Mike Cheney came across a 53-foot heat and air conditioned trailer, and that is it right there with people in it. Our LC Gas Board jumped on this and was in full support of us turning this into a mobile training facility. At the time we got this, we had about a 1970 Mack truck to pull around the state. We were starting to have a lot of problems. Our board also jumped in and purchased us another Mack, so we were able to get this thing around the state. Our office is in the process of also working with the natural gas company and the Mississippi Fire Academy out at Safety City on a vacant building that they have, and we're working with them to come up with the MOU to where we can offer full-time or full training, on-hand trainings out at the Fire Academy. So anybody coming in new, we will set up programs where they come to a 3-day school to all day of going over our basics and trying to meet all these needs that we have. The board also purchased us a generator trailer. Since generators is a big hot item right now, so, and Generac donated us a generator. So we're able to go around the state and train the proper way of installing generators and making sure that they are vented properly to prevent carbon monoxide. Let's make sure, yeah. The LC Gas Division is also sharing our training and demonstrations with other agencies. Last year, we were able to have an MOU with the Board of Contractors that helped us solve a problem that were out of control on licensing. The MOU identified who would license plumbing and HVAC companies with LC Gas, dealing with LC Gas. Since this agreement, we have been introduced to many county and city agencies that are giving us the opportunity to bring our mobile training facility and give them classes on how we are trained in the propane industry. Since the MOU, we have had many city inspectors, and we have had many city inspectors that in the natural gas and some propane requesting a 10-hour trainings. The MOU has been a very positive move for the LC gas industry and the contractors, plumbers, HVAC installers, and the Board of Contractors. This has helped us come together and be able to share a lot of excellent information and move forward. Lately, food trucks in Mississippi is becoming a hot item due to the past accidents that are happening with food trucks. See if I can get there. We go. NFPA 58 has taken more of an initiative and give us better guidance on regulating food trucks. The U-Haul Company of Pennsylvania, the U-Haul Company of Pennsylvania was fined over $160 million for filling an uncertified bottle that exploded, killing 2 people. Here in Mississippi, one of our problems that we have, there is no one agency that is handling food truck operators. Some go through the health department. Once they get stickered through the health department, they are running. If some comes to us and they get stickered, there's no, so we are working with the health department, hopefully coming up with an MOU to get a better handle on our food truck industry. Certainly, tragedies like that one in Maine, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, it's going to bring new emphasis to first responder trainings and other emergency personnel. We could see more regulations as a result of these tragedies. I think gas detectors and other safety equipment that automates certain functions will gain ground. As many of you know, and we do not like to admit it, but the election this year, it could have an impact on our regulatory issues and climate change. Environmental groups continue to press anything related to fossil fuels. MPGA has lawsuits that are attempting to reverse actions such as ban on propane forklift gas in California, banning on gas appliance installations in certain buildings in New York. Things that the federal and state regulators have yet to address are often addressed by underwriting companies. Now, propane marketers may risk high insurance rates or possibly of even not being able to get insurance if they do not comply with the minimum requirements set by the insurance companies. I mean, it's hard to blame them with the litigation society of the world's post-Provet nuclear verdicts that they have to protect themselves as well. The propane industry is a highly regulated at the state and local level. MPGA works very close with policymakers and state levels to ensure that we have a safety, reliable propane gas services, and it is maintained. In addition, under debate at a state level can have a national effect on the propane industry and its consumers. MPGA coordinates with our state propane gas associations to assure that we have accurate and timely information available regarding the industry's operation. Mississippi is very blessed to have an awesome propane gas association led by Mr. Philip Shambly. Mr. Shambly works closely with the MPGA, and he keeps not only the industry notified of what's going on, but he's also in touch with our office on a constant basis. It's been a blessing for the whole industry. In closing this, I want to give you, I hope I gave you a better look at the Mississippi State Fire Marshal LC Gas Division and the propane industry. The industry has come a long way since 1986. We have approximately 1,300 employees we are responsible to keep in compliance. We are challenged with the number of new installations that are taking place in Mississippi today. Another obstacle is with the turnover rate and labor and trying to keep everyone in compliance and trained in all new materials. The LC Gas Division has been very fortunate to have minimum accidents a year. Most accidents have been by homeowners performing their own work. Again, our board has stepped up to the plate and reacted by hiring an advertising agency to run radio ads consistently out through Mississippi, warning people about homeowners doing their own work. Again, it has been an honor for us to be here to share a little bit about our industry. We want to thank you. If there is any other questions or questions you have for the LC Gas, please feel free to call us.
I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Just for people listening and for our own knowledge, can you explain the difference between LP, propane, and natural gas?
It's in the makeup, and where that came in. I know where we differ from, or where we separate from, is kind of like where ours coming out of buck plant up to the compressor would be propane, but once it goes through the compressor and it's compressed more, it becomes natural gas. So it's all in the makeup. I think the system we had down in southwest Mississippi with the line where we had to bring in, we regulate it from the buck plant to the compressor, and then I guess y'all would regulate from the compressor down. So, but it was put in as propane. It comes through the compressor. Once it's compressed down, it changes something where it becomes natural gas.
Okay. You mentioned the possibility of federal regulations and the war on energy choice. You know, allowing people to choose what kind of energy source they want to cook or heat their home. Is there anything the state needs to do? I know a lot of legislators watch this too, live streaming and afterwards. Any legislation that y'all are looking at to try to help preserve energy choice in Mississippi?
I'm going to refer that to the chairman, and then I can tell you this, if any of the legislatures are watching, they would stay in touch with Mr. Philip Shamley, because he's in touch with the MPGA, and he's also the industry representative here and does an outstanding job.
I agree with that. Philip does a good job. I've worked with him for years, so good job. Just a few more. Consumer advocacy. You know, when we have calls into the office and people, you know, have issues with any kind of LP gas, we normally call the company themselves, and they usually fix it. But there are a few times where it doesn't get resolved. Do y'all have a helpline for consumers that can call directly if they're having trouble with a particular provider?
Yes, they would call our office. Our office would refer that to the inspector in that territory, and he would go out and meet with them and take care of it.
Okay. Commissioner Carr, you have any questions, comments?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had how many new companies coming in?
We had 150, I believe, new ones that came in. A lot of the new ones coming in now, let me emphasize when I said that, it may not be a Class 1 dealer. It could be generator operator, people installing generators or service techs. You know, since generators is big right now, everybody is wanting to become a generator installer. So they're getting licensed to run propane to the generators.
So what is the requirements for them to get into business through the?
They would have to meet, to get into business, they would have to meet the insurance requirements, which is on our application. They would fill out that application, and if they meet the insurance requirements and the experience, somewhere they need somebody with them that does it. Once they do this, we have an educational setup to where they have trainings to go through, and then we license them. And we usually give them, we work with them for that amount of time, so usually up to about 60 days they will be fully licensed. We give them a temporary license, and then within the 60 days we try to have them fully trained or knowledgeable wherever to meet 54 and 58.
So that's just to deliver gas and to set
That's
up
to
a
deliver, that's service work, and that's why I was saying we were trying to establish the Safety City, the one building that is vacant. So we will set it up completely propane with underground tanks, everything, so we can actually go out there and do live trainings, the whole process.
Okay. So when you go into a city like City of Gulfport, City of Hattiesburg, they have a code office.
Yes.
So, but when you're in the rural area, who does the inspections?
Sometime, I'm gonna tell you, that's a tough question. Use Harrison County, for example. Harrison County has a code enforcement there, but then there is other counties that don't. But whoever is, we work with them side by side. When you mentioned Gulfport, we're in their office all the time.
Okay.
And just letting them know we're here
Okay.
and anything they need.
So y'all pull a permit in the bigger cities?
Our dealers do, that is correct.
Okay.
And I'm sure Braxton may regard to that.
So how often do they have to go to school to get recertified? Is it
The
on?
book says every 3 years you have to have a refresher course. Every year we put on classes so the refresher course would come through a CTAP program and be on computers. And then in that 3 years, we offer programs which is hands-on. We bring our trailer around and we teach on them, so by the time they get to the computer, they're prepped and ready to go. So it's a nonstop process. So you figure we're managing 1,300 employees now, and that's at a minimum. And I'm talking that goes from the CSRs, which is a customer service representative in the office, all the way to your driver or who. We train, we prep them, and we refresh their courses.
So the person is driving a truck, delivering to the tank,
Yes, sir.
whether it be residential or commercial. What kind of license does he have to required to have?
He has to have a Class B with a hazmat. Back when I started, my license was $13, and you never had to go for a renewal. Now, that driver, if you're getting that license today, fresh, could cost you about $2,500, $3,000. Every 4 years, you have to retest on hazmat. Every 2 years, you have to have a physical and have to be able to pass a physical every 2 years and retest every 4.
So your technicians, when y'all go into a house or piping a generator in or an outdoor kitchen or a man cave, as they call them, so are y'all hard piping?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all having any issues with the flex pipe, the
Uh,
stainless steel flex
you
pipe?
know, when you say problems, if it's not installed properly, yes. Now let me tell you what the biggest problem is you have CSST that is like a track pipe sold from the dealer, and it has a special coating that you can, when you run it, as long as you have an appliance hooked up that has a negative plug, you're okay. But the problem we have is, and we train our people this, but when you run to Home Depot or a box store and you buy this, we are running into problems because they're not designed for that. And you get improper installations.
Mm-hmm. So how do y'all inspect your tanks? Like, for instance, if you have one that's the individual owns the tank and there's an issue with the tank, what happens at that point? Like if you have a regulator valve go bad or the tank's rusty, but the homeowner owns the tank, how do y'all address that?
If the dealer goes out to any call and he breaks the system down, which is, we have a regulator problem, so we break the system down. He repairs it. He fills out a state form. That'd be one of the forms I tell you would be the 9,000 that's coming in. He also has to fill out, redo all his leak checks, and then notify us within 15 days that he was there. And then we would go out. We have 120 days to get it inspected.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Good. I'm done. Thank you.
How do you foresee the industry landscape evolving over the next few years in the propane industry?
As I look today and listen to a lot of our smaller dealers, and when we was talking a while ago about the insurance rates, we have a lot of small dealers that are being challenged of even getting the insurance. And I'm talking they have been insured for 10, 15 years with no accidents. So the landscape's getting tighter and tougher.
What's driving that, you think?
I would think lawsuits, lawsuits, just like the $160 million. But it's making it challenging.
Can you share the best practices for propane companies to align with insurance regulations effectively?
Explain to me what you're asking.
Just best practices that propane companies can do to make it to where they get insured or easier to get insured.
Man, that one's a tough one. Because we don't have anything to do with the insurance companies. I'm just telling you what I hear from them.
Sure.
But I tell you, one of the things is making sure that all their trainings they are all coming to our trainings. They're kept up to date, keeping their risk down, accident risk down. All that helps. Anytime we have an accident, it hurts the whole industry. So, and that's the way we look at it. We try to make sure that everybody's online, and when we do something, we're looking at it as an industry trying to help bring everything down.
Yeah, just to know if there were any programs that from the insurance to come in and say, or any kind of help to make sure that the insurance companies understand, or the providers understand what the insurance companies want them to do to make sure they do best practices to make sure they can get insurance.
I can tell you after 9/11, me and my wife was a small dealer. We owned Cuevas Gas Company. And after 9/11, I got a letter in the mail that said they give me, we've never had an accident, anything, been with them 9 years, 10 years. And they said they was dropping all companies that was outside of Texas. So when you start talking about insurance companies with LP Gas, it's limited on insurance. You're not going to go down to the local insurance company and get this. And I can tell you, the only way I was able to get insurance at that time was Commissioner George Dale that hooked me up with a company. But of course, my insurance rates went from $18,000 to $54,000 overnight. Yeah.
Any more questions,
Yeah.
Commissioner?
So you mentioned Home Depot or Lowe's, and I understand
Box
that
store.
the quality's not there. So they have tanks, portable tanks there, 5-gallon tanks.
Yes.
Who inspects those?
We inspect them. And what we inspect is, and this is the problem here again, we do random checks. But once the cage is set up, we go out and we inspect the location. We look at the bottles to make sure. Usually if we don't get a call back on a problem there, and sometimes we do. They got a leaking bottle, they panic, they don't know what to do. We go out, or we try to get a gas company out there as soon as we can to pick up the bottles. But we do inspect them. It's just like our dispensing stations. That is where you would take your bottle to have filled. We inspect every one of them also.
Who oversees the bulk, like Blue Rhino and those guys?
We do.
You do, okay.
And it is a challenge. Most of them companies are not from Mississippi. Most of them are from, we got them as far as from New York. And man, I'm telling you, it's a big challenge, but we're doing the best we can.
Okay. Any more questions,
I'm
Commissioner?
good. Thank you.
I think that wraps up our part. Thank you so much for your presentation. Good job. Next, we have Mr. Rob Lowe, State Liquefied Compression Gas Board. Mr. Lowe?
I, like Scotty, want to thank y'all for doing this. It's been a long time. Never really. We've had individual commissioners call us in the past and asking us a question as y'all are doing now, but we've never been invited to this, and since we are not regulated by the commission, so we appreciate y'all taking the time to let us come in and talk to you a little bit. One of the questions that y'all asked Scotty was about the insurance, and the insurance company does play a role on things like back when customers were taught how to relight a pilot light on their hot water heater or something like that. And the insurance companies were pushing us to kind of let the professional come in and handle those things. So any interruption in service, whether you're just changing out a stove or anything, anytime you got to do the leak checks. So the propane company has to come in now and replace the appliance and then go out to the tank and put your pressure gauge on the tank and make sure it holds every time. And that basically came from an insurance companies beginning to look at ways to lower liability. So so Scotty's insurance could go back down from 54 to 18 or wherever it was. And so they helped us on out of gas calls as far as quickly responding to those. Once again, that's a total disruption of the service. So not only do you have to do the leak check now, but we go in and make sure every pilot light is relit and everything's working properly. So the insurance companies do play a role in things where they're seeing the lawsuits are kind of focusing in on. And so then they'll direct the propane companies in some way as you're out there in the insurance market trying to get your insurance. They'll play a big role in that. If you're not doing what they want you to do, then they're probably not going to write you. So
I'll echo what you're saying. I was in the RV industry, which are small homes, right? And the biggest the accidents we saw were people doing it themselves. They would take a gas refrigerator out, put electric in, forget to cap the line, and those things are, it's catastrophic. So, safety. You got to double check anytime you break the system, you got to double check pressure.
And having grown up on natural gas my entire life, I would never imagine working on anything having to do with the gas. But when you're rural, you're out there in the propane world, you're rural, most of these guys are do-it-yourself people. That's how they were raised. And so a lot of the training has had to go into, we appreciate your skill and your ability, but would you please let us do the job? We need to be the ones to do it. So anyway, yeah. Okay, I'm Rob Love, chairman of the LC Gas Board, probably the last original charter member of that board that was established by the legislature in approximately 95, 6, something along that time frame. And it was made up originally of 7 members, at that time 1 from each of the 5 congressional districts and 2 at large. 4 of those had to be small propane dealers of 1 million gallons or less. Over time and consolidation of the industry, we had to increase what we considered a small dealer to 2.5 million gallons. And so that's why you see the Rob Loves with Lambton Love, the David Reynolds with Blossman LP Gas, those larger dealers are mostly the ones that are at large, and we try to keep the other people that are appointed by the commissioner as the small dealers. But even that is getting more and more difficult as just industry consolidation continues to happen throughout time, and so it's getting difficult. And then, as Scotty mentioned, we did make the adjustment from 5 districts to 4 in time. So, yeah, I've been on that board now for whatever that is, 25 to 30 years, been chairman of it probably all but about 5 of those. And so, and for the record, my time's coming to the end. The next time you have a propane summit, I'll be retired taking care of grandbabies. But anyway, the main objectives, everything revolves around safety. And so when it comes to issuing the permits that the LC Gas Board does, that Class 1 Scotty mentioned, that's a full propane dealer. Can pump gas, sell gas, install appliances, can do all that himself. Another one that we have a lot of is what we would just call, they're not in the propane business specifically, but they're gas plumbers. Be a Class 3 permit, they can work on a system, they can come in, they're licensed to come in and work on a system and make repairs to appliances and things like that. Class 4 is a big one, and that's kind of what we would call the midstreamers. They're the people that are on the pipeline, that got the transport trucks that are delivering the propane from one facility to another. And then we've got a Class 8, which is really our biggest, which is like bottle plants. Convenience store, every convenience store, lots of co-op type places, you know, all have these propane bottle plants. And a whole lot of our time and a whole lot of our training goes into those, because at those convenience stores, you may train 3 people, and you go out there a week later, and one of those 3 people is still there. And so now you've got 2 other people out there that have not been trained, and you're hoping that one that's left has done a good job of teaching them. And we can't keep up with the employee every single time. But so that Class 8 is a tougher one that we have a little bit more trouble with. But so back in 1995 or 6, the legislature established this board, and Commissioner Dale at that time appointed all the original members. After Commissioner Dale decided not to run again, we came in under Commissioner Cheney. And the board works at his pleasure. In other words, we have our duties that we can do, but the commissioner has final sign-off on anything. And so we don't control the inspectors. They're his employees. Our board may feel like we need to be doing more here, but they're his employees. We used to have, as Scotty said, we used to have a whole lot more than we do now. We have no control over the budget. The commissioner controls his budget, and he tells us how many people he's gonna let the LC Gas Division have. He does do a good job of sharing with us there's a whole lot more fire people. What do they call Scotty? Fire marshals out there. And we've trained a lot of them in some of the easy, just drive by and spot something that you think may be improper to let the LC Gas Division know. So they've been helpful there. But anyway, so we serve at the pleasure of the commissioner, and he signs off on everything. We have 2 primary jobs as part of the responsibility. One is on the propane side, is the safety side, which is working with the inspectors. If anything comes up, we get a notice. If it's severe enough, we put it on our agenda. But most of the time, the propane industry is really very well self-regulated from the standpoint of just about every propane company out there, we all in a lawsuit somewhere. And so we don't want any more. We collaborate with each other, with the Mississippi Propane Gas Association and Phillip through conventions and other meetings like that. And then, so we try to regulate each other. So most of the time, if a mistake is found, if Scotty and Faye and them, they just say, this isn't quite right. And most of the time, the propane company is going to immediately fix it because they don't want the liability. And so it's pretty much self-regulated. But occasionally, like in anything, we'll come upon a bad actor. And when they do, that's when the board comes into play. The inspectors have the right to write a citation for an act that they feel like has gone to the point of being irresponsible or a repeat offender. And at that point in time, the board can hold a hearing, bring that company in before us, hold a hearing, and with the challenge of, you know, a slap on the wrist up to a fine. The fine increases, can increase the number of times, you know, like first time in, it can maybe be like 1,000, you know, second time it could go up to 3. And we have actually shut one propane company completely down, pulled their permit, and just for total lack of competence, you know, and so it's the only time it's ever happened in that 30 years, but it does happen. And then the other side of the coin is our Propane Education and Research Fund, PERC Fund. We also are in charge of dispersing those things. So when Scotty talks about the LC Gas Board had been very helpful on the safety trailer, we use those PERC funds to help him get the trailer, get the tractor to pull the trailer, wrap it, and then so it's advertising up and down the street. And so we dispense those. And a lot of that time, and a lot of propane companies really pitch in. Like, you know, propane companies will pitch in, like one company may donate the stove that's gonna be in the safety trailer. One company may donate that generator that's gonna be in the generator trailer, you know, and so, and a lot of times we'll do gas. One of the things that we do with our PERC money is every year we use the Fire Academy and their fire training. They have a very specific set of apparatuses that they use to train firefighters specifically on fighting propane fires. And so we fund them every year to go out over 8 to 10 different areas of the state and put on fire training for volunteer fire departments, probably primarily, but obviously the city fire departments are welcome as well. And so, and then a lot of times those propane companies will donate that gas that they're gonna burn during that thing as just a show of appreciation of training the people that are in their community to help. So besides, so that's the primary, and so we'll use it, also use PERC funds, some for advertising, some for public service statements out there that's, like Scotty said, on safety or let the professionals do the job. But it's mostly a education and research type thing. The propane company is very, like I said, collaborates a lot. Everybody on the LC Gas Board has got a relationship to the propane business. They're either in it, they have been in it, and have left and taken some other job, or could even be like working for a company that sells LP gas equipment that we would buy all the time for our pipe and our brass fittings and all that. It's just got to have some kind of association to the industry. Most of them can do every single job associated with the propane business. I can't do it. I can't set a tank. I can't drive a bobtail. I can't do any of that. I know the rules and regulations, but I never have done it other than when I was 13 and 14 years old, and my dad would make me go to work and put me on a gas truck. And so anyway, I'm trying to go through some of Steve's questions and see if I'm kind of touching on the high points. One of the things too that came up to Scotty was on customer-owned equipment and tanks. It doesn't make us any difference. If it's a Lambton Love tank and there's a problem with it, they're going to handle the problem, and they're going to let Lambton Love know that there's a problem and it better get fixed. If John Doe owns it, it's the same thing. Who's selling them the gas? We're going to contact that propane company. We're going to make sure they know there's a problem, And if the customer puts up any hesitation to us trying to do it, then we just red tag the system. Shut the gas off, pull the regulator off, and they're out of commission until the problem can be fixed. So we're gonna step in regardless of who owns it. But probably most of the, I'd say probably 65 to 70% of the tanks out there are company owned versus customer owned. But we're going to handle it. If it's an unsafe situation, we're going to handle it no matter who owns the equipment. Let me see if there's anything else, and y'all certainly can ask anything you'd like to ask in the meantime. But one of his questions was collaborations with others, and I think things like the Fire Academy is a perfect example of that. Obviously, we need those guys trained. That's a collaboration between the LC Gas Board and the Fire Academy, and it's worked out great. And that's primarily what I have to say. It's been an honor to serve on that LC Gas Board. Like I said, I'm the last man standing from the original. There's probably been 25 or 30 other board members that I've sat at that table with over that number of years. And now we got bright young men like Braxton Coombs coming along to take some of us old people and put us out to pasture. And so anyway, it's been a real pleasure. Once again, thank y'all so much for this, and I'm open now to any questions.
Great job. Appreciate you. Just a few. Did you ride a bike like Scotty did? Did you start like?
No, I think I would be more what the industry called silver spooned instead of by my boots, coming up by my bootstraps.
Just a few overview questions. What are the main objectives of the Mississippi LP Gas Board?
Our main obligation is safety. We rely on the inspectors for a lot of that, but a lot of what the inspectors get is from the propane industry itself. They go out there and they see a slab being poured, and it's in their territory, their operating territory. They're monitoring that. So a whole lot of times, if they see a violation going in right off the bat, a lot of times it's the propane company that will let the inspectors know this is going on and it needs some attention right away. And that's sometimes where that flex pipe comes in that you were talking about. A lot of the problem with that is the bonding. And I don't know anything about it. I just hear the words, is to properly ground it. Because if you don't, that's where the problems have come in with things like lightning strikes and things like that end up with a little pilot light, little flame up in somebody's attic, which potentially can cause a bad situation. And so safety is our whole goal. And that's what those inspectors do every single day. And violators will be handled. And 99% of the time, they can handle it. And that 1% of the time, they have to come before the board.
Do you can you discuss a little bit about the board's approach to handling consumer complaints or disputes? Do y'all get involved in that?
We do not get involved in that hardly ever that I can think of. We just don't really handle it. But if one did come before us, we'd have to just go straight to the source. We'd just get in touch with the gas company, and if it was a dispute that somehow or another could reach our level, we would call in both parties and kind of basically mediate the situation as best we could.
How does the board balance regulatory oversight and fostering industry growth and innovation? Good
question. most of the things that are new and cause us problems are not things that we generated for ourselves. They're coming down from federal regulations, they're coming down from other situations. And so that's where it gets a little bit difficult. But through training, through collaborations, through keeping up with the industry standards, like Scotty said, those pamphlets that come out, 54 comes out this year, 2 years later, 54 renews, you know, so it's kind of back and forth. And so, another thing PERC does is every single branch in the propane industry, our PERC fund pays anytime a new pamphlet comes out. And then they also have a, what's the book that we give to the inspectors? Scotty bailed on me.
No, he's back there.
You back there, Scotty? What's the, you know, the inspectors not only get the new pamphlets, but they get the handbook that further explains it. And that's something else that's done. But, so yeah, the difficulties come, and this is the pressure on Philip, is when a place like California does come out and say, no propane inside such and such type of buildings, or New York City says no propane. And so many times, as you look down the line, if those states adopt it, you know, slowly but surely it's going to creep. And before long, it may become a federal regulation. And so we seek Philip on them. He gets after them for us.
Yeah, Philip did a good job, actually. I had a question for Scotty that energy choice, and I'm glad to say the state legislature passed it. Was it last year or this session? This session. So 1583 kind of was a safeguard to make sure that Mississippi consumers have choice in the energy they choose. So that's a victory at the Capitol. So can you point to any examples of successful collaboration between the board and industry stakeholders?
Primarily, I would have to go back to the safety city, the safety trailer, the generator trailer. Those are all collaborations that have proven to be very, very helpful. Safety city is, you know, right there in Rankin County, so everybody has to travel. The beauty of the safety trailer and the generator trailer is Scotty and them can take that to anybody. And so if a company, if an individual company says, I'd like to run 6 employees through the trailer, Scotty can make that happen. If you want to go up to Greenville, Mississippi, and let all the dealers within 100 miles know that's where it's going to be, then, you know, he can make it happen and train everybody. And it's part of, not only is it that part of that 3-year training, but it's also part of the way that we get to some of the people that Scotty talked about that were, you know, just out there doing something like hooking up a generator. Never even knew they needed a permit from the LC Gas Board. Or, you know, a home builder that was piping the gas, never knew that they needed an LC Gas permit, so.
A few more questions. You mentioned inspectors. Do you think you have enough inspectors, or do you need some more?
Look, I think we need more. That's my personal opinion, because, like I said, I've been in the industry for 44 years, and so it's, you know, I remember back when there was 20, and I remember when the year that Scotty was talking about when there was 3. And so 7, you know, anybody that's dealing with 11 and 12 counties, Faye that's sitting back there from you know, Vicksburg to Meridian, I mean, that's difficult. That's a difficult challenge. when you think about that strip in those 12 counties, there could be 300 or 400 tanks swapping places, who's doing business with who, you know, and how many can you inspect? And so it's a tough situation, and so Scotty and them have to prioritize. And so you heard like on the school inspections were way up in that 6th percentile or something like that, whereas down in the 25% of home inspections, a few more in the trucks and a few more. The good thing about the trucks is we're all DOT. And so we got the feds after us as well. So most of us are going to keep our trucks in pretty good shape because the DOT is stopping us around here and there all the time and checking on us.
You mentioned perk funding. Where's that come? How is that funded?
That's just a self-regulated tax on the propane industry that the Mississippi Propane Gas Association, through their association, through their board and their membership, voluntarily agreed to 0.2 tax. I think that now has gone up to maybe 0.3 that comes in, and it is held all the funds are held now by the legislature, by the state. You used to could have your own,
So that's called up in special funds.
Yeah,
The special funds.
called up.
Yeah.
And so they basically grant us money. Our account may have $350,000 in it, but we're only given $130,000 a year by the legislature, which in most years work. I mean, it was I'm sure they looked at what our average spending was, and so in most years that works, and so it works out fine. But it's just a volunteer, self-regulated tax.
You rather be a special fund account anyway. Right, go back to that. Last question. I apologize for all these, but what advice would you give to new entrants in the propane industry to ensure compliance and success?
They need, whoever wants to go in the propane business, in my opinion, and Braxton, I'm sure, will speak to this as well, they need to come into it and dive straight into the safety and education side of it. So many times we have a Class 1 permit come before us, and it's a Rob Love. And he's wanting to start a propane business, but he doesn't own a bobtail, he doesn't own a tank, he doesn't have an employee, he doesn't have anything. And so you just need to get your ducks in a row. You need to get to our inspectors. You need to get your people through that safety training and be right on the safety side of it, because it'll help you with your liability, it'll help you with your insurance, help you with accidents of just that you have to cover sometimes with your own money, backing up into somebody's grass and your truck gets stuck in it, and so just all those different little things. I would say focus on the safety aspect first, and then come to us and tell us you're ready to go into the propane business, and we'll be glad to help you.
Commissioner Carr?
Show me the money, so to speak.
So,
What protections exist for the consumers regarding LP gas pricing and sales practices?
there's nothing hard written rule about it. It's wide open market, and we've had years. Get a little bit into Braxton side of the business. We get propane from Texas. There's a pipeline that comes through and lands in Petal, Mississippi, called the Dixie Pipeline, and that's where probably 85% or so of the propane that is sold in Mississippi comes from. And one company owns it. Used to be Shell and Exxon and everybody, all the big boys had a piece of it. Now it's owned by Enterprise. It's such a small amount, like FERC doesn't care. if they want to raise the tariff, they can raise the tariff. FERC isn't going to do a thing about it because they're more interested in those big old pipelines hauling fuel oils and heavy oils all across the country. And so most of our propane comes from there. And so we've got no control. So if we have a hard winter spell, and all of a sudden your transport trucks are sitting in line at Petal, Mississippi for 4, 5, 6 hours of a 12-hour drive day, then everything's gonna start creeping up. And about 10 years ago, that made our former Northern District Commissioner so mad, you know, the price ended up going all the way up at Petal from like $1.15 to within about 10 days, it had gone up to like $2.80. And it's all just a supply and demand. You can't get the gas. Your trucks are just sitting down there in line. You can't get the gas. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, when that happened for a brief period of time, then so now we're selling gas for $3.85 instead of, you know, $2 that it was when it was back here. And so, you know, those type of things affect it. But there's nothing written that says if Braxton and I were in the same community and Braxton said, well, I'm gonna sell my gas for $1.15, I can sell, well, I'm gonna sell mine for $2.15. There's no regulation in that way.
Consumers regulate that.
Yeah.
'Cause they'll go to Braxton for $1.15
They'll go
in a
to
hurry.
Braxton.
Yeah, so you're just out of luck at that point.
Exactly.
So how does the board, if there comes a time where there's a dispute between providers, how does the board step in with that?
Providers,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
between propane companies?
Yes.
Yeah, we've had those. Like, one of the regulations we passed not too terribly long ago was that the propane company that owned the tank is the only company that's supposed to put gas in that tank. But the propane company's responsibility is to have that clearly marked on the tank. Well, from time to time, we'll have somebody that'll stop in. Maybe the sticker's been torn off by the customer because they want to buy from Braxton instead of me because he's cheaper.
$1.15?
Accidentally, that sticker just happens to disappear, you know, that type of thing. And we've actually brought them in for hearings before if it's something that's happening continually. Same company is pumping other companies' tanks on a regular basis. We'll call them in for a hearing. But most of the time, the inspectors can handle that. They always have the threat of, I can bring you before the board if y'all can't straighten this out yourselves. And so most of the time, the disputes are settled out in the field with the LC gas inspectors.
And sometimes probably the customer's right in the middle of it.
A lot of times.
You mentioned earlier about the flex line having a little pinhole in it. A friend of mine had that happen at his house. And so the voluntary fire department came in and they put the fire out, 2-story house. Well, they was downstairs, I guess, rolling up the hoses and it didn't light it back. Well, the one thing they didn't do was cut the gas off.
Yeah.
So how does the board ensure that they're working with volunteer fire departments for that reason, education-wise?
Yeah. Got to make an answer. I don't know if we had any direct involvement with the firefighters, but through that Fire Academy program that we put on, where they travel around, I think each year they go to 7 or 8, maybe as many as 10 locations and hit those. That's really where the majority of that work is being done. And do volunteer firefighters or anything other than those live burns, do they ever go through our safety trailers and?
Not yet, but big encouragement to the fire departments is if they arrive on the scene with LC gas or propane gas, to please call us. So they notify, and normally
So another question, going back to education, I think one of y'all mentioned that you would have 3 people, and the next time you show up, you got 1 person. So is the LP companies, are they having problems keeping good people and certified people on the payroll?
Very difficult.
Okay, so are y'all going out into the community colleges and the high schools and the trade schools and offering courses, offering your services? Is that something y'all are doing, or is it?
We're certainly encouraging. I'm not sure if we could go all the way up to, are we involved in offering the course? But we're encouraging that in the community college fields primarily. And different ones kind of have a different stake in that, but it's part of what we try to do. Propane propane driver could go instantly on any day with the permit he has to have to drive our propane truck. He can go instantly and double his salary on an 18-wheeler. Mm-hmm. And so, we're constantly in that battle of, we hire them, we train them, we get them their hazmat endorsement, we do all that, and 6 months later, yeah, they're out there working for ABC, driving gasoline, hauling gasoline back and forth to convenience stores for double the money. And so it's tough right now. It's tough getting employees. And I know there's been a lot of push in some of the states on trying to connect with veterans that have come back and are trying to reorient themselves into the workforce and things of that nature. So there's a lot of little programs out there that are designed to try to promote ways to keep the employees, but it's fairly difficult right now.
I know in the construction world, some of the stuff that I have read, for every 5 people that's getting out, there's only 2 coming back in. So I understand the difficulty. So is there any incentives that, from a tax standpoint? Something we need to look at.
Yeah.
Chambly, there you go. You mentioned possible price gouging. If somebody was accused of price gouging, one company is complaining about the other, or in times of hurricanes or tornadoes or stuff like that, do y'all get involved in those issues and try to sort that out? You mentioned the previous commissioner getting on you pretty hard. Is that, yeah, what's the response to those things?
Yeah, for the most part, we do not get involved. Now, we'll pass that information along to like an assistant attorney general or somebody of that nature. We'll pass that information on, but typically speaking, that does not come through us. Now, the LC Gas division, they may hear about it. And we had one company that year that price got so out of control, just shut the door, completely shut the door, left hundreds of chicken growers out there with no way to get gas, and they covered like 3 or 4 states, and the propane industry had to respond to that situation and kind of, we like did an emergency, okay, anybody can fill up these tanks now. If anybody volunteers to help this company that just shut down in the face of, he had offered everybody for fun, let's just say $1 gas, and now it's costing you $2.80 down in Hattiesburg. And he just shut the doors. And, the propane industry responded. In Huntsville, Alabama, we let Tyson Foods, gave them exclusive uses to one of our 30,000-gallon bulk plant tanks. And Tyson supplied their chicken growers gas on their own dime, on Tyson's dime, and within 2 days after the price had self-corrected, every one of those chicken growers went straight back to the company that had shut down on them and left Tyson holding 65,000 gallons of propane at $2 and whatever cents sitting in our bulk plant. We, by the time the price had self-corrected, we ended up buying it back from them for $1. So, price gouging is hard, because that guy who's promising everybody $1, I can promise you to some of his customers, all the rest of us in competition with them are price gouging all the time, because we're saying, no, we can't sell it for $1. If we're buying it for 85, we can't sell it for $1. We got to sell it for, something, a better margin than that. Mm-hmm. So, but we don't get involved unless the call comes into the LC Gas division, and if they do, then they can notify proper authorities.
Okay.
Where do you see the industry going in the future?
Braxton, I'm going to be stepping all over his toes here, but I think it's going forward in a positive way. So many things are coming along, like auto gas. Way back when, all those farmers had tractors running on propane and all that, but it's making a comeback with the push for cleaner fuel, cleaner air, and we converted some ridiculous number of close to 1,000 zero-turn lawnmowers to propane for various lawn and garden type places, golf courses and different things like that. If it runs on gas, it can run on propane. If you want to put your weed eater on propane, we can put your weed eater on propane. You're gonna have to lug that tank along with you. But it'll run. So, and then the generator side. So I bought a generator. Mine's running on natural gas, so the only money you make on that is just for the sale of the generator. But if you can get one out there that's on propane, it can be a big increase in gallons. If it's kind of a sad situation, because I don't want to sound like I'm wishing you trouble, but if the hurricane comes through and knocks out your electricity and you got a propane generator, then we're selling gas, and so unfortunately a lot of our big years are disaster years.
So that brings up an interesting question. So I have propane, I have generator, and I have the instant water heaters. That's the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion. So during Katrina, and I'm from the coast, there was no electricity. So at your bulk plants, do you have generators at the facilities?
We do not have a generator at each facility, but we have generators on trailers that we schedule. And so if we're on the coast, then we're letting our driver know we're going to be at this bulk plant at this time. Your bobtails need to get there.
Okay.
And that's their responsibility to get them there. We'll get the electricity going. We'll fill up every bobtail, and that generator will take off. The next stop may be Hammond, Louisiana, or wherever. So we have the capability of that in a response situation. And then, MEMA and FEMA are also are good to us, that we kind of get that kind of emergency responder status. So they understand that we got to keep things flowing and kind of in response for helping them out with propane for food banks and different things like that. Then we've got access to that one gas station that only FEMA can use, and so we collaborate that way some in those emergency situations. But yeah, so we can do that, but we're in the generator business, so I don't know if that's common theme or not throughout the industry, but we run trailers with the generators on them.
Mr. Lowe, thank you for your presentation. We're going to take a brief intermission before we go to finish up with Braxton Coombs. So, everybody, we'll take, what, 10 minutes? Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break. Thank y'all. Okay, we're going to move on to Braxton Coombs, owner of Coombs Gas from New Albany, or / Blue Mountain, right, Braxton?
My name is Megan Childs. My family is a third-generation customer of Coombs Gas. We have trusted them for many years. They're very reliable. Anytime we've needed anything, they have come to our rescue. There's been times where we have been low on our gas, and when we've called, they've come immediately when we needed them. We brought home a newborn baby in 2016, and we were low on our gas, and Braxton and his company came out and rescued us that day because it was very cold. We just enjoy being part of their company and seeing them grow the way they've grown over the past few years.
I'm Lee Russell Gray. I've been knowing Coombs for years and been doing business with him for years. It's a lot that I could go back and say from my time. I watched Braxton and the grandboys grow up. I've just been in the family for years. If you were looking for propane, I would go to Coombs. They are reliable, truthful, they're good business people, they're good, great people. And I love them to death. They're just like family to me.
Thought we'd show a little bit of a video to get started off since I'm doing the dealer portion here. But first off, again, my name's Braxton Coombs. I'm president of Coombs Gas Company, and thank y'all so much for the opportunity to come and speak and hopefully educate some about our industry. And I definitely also want to say, since Rob and Scotty have had the opportunity to speak, that you know, as a owner of a propane company, a dealer, very, very thankful for Scotty and also just Rob's leadership. They've done a great justice and duty for our state and keeping people safe, for sure. And so what I'd like to do is first, to start out, I want to give you a little bit of history of Coombs Gas and kind of where we came from. And so my great-grandfather actually started with my great-uncle, Coombs Brothers Gas, in 1952, and operated that in Blue Mountain, Mississippi until about 1964. It was sold to Continental Oil, but at that time, my grandfather was just out of high school and working in propane, and he went, after he and my grandmother were married, to Bruce, Mississippi, and operated as a regional manager there for Empire Gas until 1969, when him, my grandmother, and my dad, who was 7 years old at the time, moved back to Blue Mountain to open up Coombs Gas, which exists today. And so they came from very humble beginnings. They went to the bank, got a $10,000 loan, bought their first gas truck, and my granddaddy was delivering gas and piping systems, and my grandmother was in the office answering the phone. And we're actually still in Blue Mountain in the same office that we were in back then, but we've grown. We occupy in that same building now what used to be a laundromat, a barber shop, and a restaurant. And so it's been great. And fast forward a little bit. You know, I've been in propane and around propane pretty much all my life. Grew up most of my life in Mississippi. And for me, it was mainly the summers, having the opportunity to go and spend that time with my grandfather. We were doing a lot of anhydrous ammonia back then as well. And so he picked me up at 5:45 in the morning. We'd be at Strix Cafe from 6 till open in the office at 7. And I'd work with him all day long and just fell in love with it and have a lot of love and pride for the company that we have today. And so it was after college, just a little bit of history. I'd moved off and worked in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, and it wasn't until, since we are a family-owned and operated business, it was in 2018, my dad was actually diagnosed with ALS, and my wife and my family, we made the decision to move back to Mississippi and purchase our family's propane company, which we did in October of 18. and it has been a journey ever since. It is, it's really been a lot of fun, a tremendous opportunity, and we're really excited to see what's still to come, and excited to see what we've been able to accomplish so far. And so our office, our main office, is located in Blue Mountain, Mississippi. We also have an office in Batesville, and we're currently working on opening our third location in Monroe County in Aberdeen, which will open a little bit later this year. We go about as far south as Starkville and as far north as Jackson, Tennessee, and cover the width of the state of Mississippi and western Tennessee. And we have 6 bulk storage facilities across Mississippi and Tennessee as well. And so, so I know, Mr. Carr, you use propane, and I'm just kind of curious, based on the audience in here, show of hands, who also uses propane at their house? All right, we got some propane users. Steve, you really do? Okay.
He does now.
He does now. Well, good. So, just to, give a little bit of a dealer or kind of propane operator perspective, want to just talk a little bit about the products that we offer as a company and that the industry also offers. And y'all, please feel free. I love discussions, so y'all jump in at any time with any questions or anything. But in our business, I really categorize a lot of our business with, across residential, commercial, as well as agricultural. And so in residential, this is where, we serve individuals, we serve homes, we serve families. And so just like the video that was shown on the screen just a little earlier of a couple of our customers, we take pride in those families that we serve. We have customers, and it's incredible that my grandfather set a tank at in 1969 are still with us. Now they're 97, 98 years old, but they're still with us today, to this day, and we love them. But propane, from doing the gas plumbing to setting the tank, but then also you just think about what propane offers. I heard Mr. Carr, you mentioned earlier your tankless hot water heater is the best thing since sliced bread, and I couldn't agree more. Whether it's tankless water heaters, whether it's gas stoves, whether it's your furnace or HVAC unit, whether it's backup heating solutions that don't require electricity, and also whether it's whole home generators, which, as Rob mentioned earlier, have really, really taken off over the last few years. It's honestly, it's still a very expensive proposition for most, but it's come down to where it is, an affordable price point, especially if you look at, people with any type of, health issues or concerns to where they need that backup power. And also just in rural areas where you may not be on public water and you're dependent on a well. And probably the only thing worse than losing your electricity is losing your water. That's when you've got really big problems if that's prolonged for a period of time. And I think that talking about generators and the surge that's happened with the installation of those over the last few years, Scotty's point about regulation related to that has been really, really important. We go behind a lot of homeowners that unfortunately may have bought a generator from a big box store or, not able to choose their own electrician because of that, and you're not getting quality installs, and there's issues that are occurring, and then unfortunately, because it's installed incorrectly, warranties aren't kicking in then as well. And so we hate seeing that, and it's an issue that's out there, but I think that the work that the LC Gas Board's doing in connecting the LC Gas Board with the Mississippi Board of Contractors to where your everyday, plumber that is licensed and knows what they're doing in natural gas, that's still different than propane. You've got to be licensed in propane because you're dealing with two different things, two different types of regulators, and at the end of the day, somebody can get hurt. And so, propane, we talked a little bit about, other regulatory concerns, and yes, there's large pushes right now from, the EPA, predominantly the EPA and other federal legislators, in New York and California, to move away from gas-powered furnaces for HVAC systems, as well as gas stoves. But you go and ask almost any professional chef in the United States, and what are they using to cook their steaks at their restaurants? You know, Gordon Ramsay included. It's propane. They're burning propane because of the BTU content that even produces over natural gas. And so lots of different residential options. And truthfully, you know, I'd say probably about 80% of our business is residential. So we're working with families, and that's great. We really love that, and it gets personal. You know, we've been around, you know, since 1969. You know, we just hit 55 years this month, and so our drivers, our technicians, it's awesome to see, you know, the relationships that they build out in the field and out in the communities. So to change gears a little bit, commercial. And so for us, that's an area where we've really been growing over the last 6 years. The biggest component of that, at least for us, is in forklifts for manufacturers and warehouses. In the United States, approximately 70% of forklifts operate off of propane. And you know, you may think, well, why is that? You know, because there is a lot of electric forklifts out there as well. But you think about someone, especially in warehouses that run multiple shifts, you know, if you're running that forklift and then you got to go plug it in and charge it, you know, for 8 hours or however long before you can use it again, that's a serious lack of productivity that machine's getting. Whereas propane, a typical propane cylinder that goes on the back of a forklift, that's going to operate about 8 hours. And so the great thing is you pull over, go out, grab another cylinder, and just swap that out, and you're immediately back up and running. And so that's why a lot of companies really prefer propane over electric forklifts. And also, you know, with commercial businesses, we're beginning to do, you know, much more, you know, generator installations for nursing homes, for medical clinics, you know, for businesses to where they can stay, you know, in operation. You know, restaurants, we're working on a restaurant right now. You know, when they're down with a power outage, El Agave in New Albany, they, you know, when you lose 2 hours of power, and, you know, that equates to, you know, maybe, you know, 175 families shuttling in and out of a restaurant, it's a big impact for them. And then, of course, agriculture, you know, a big user of propane in grain drying, cotton drying. And so we've got a lot of farmers that we've been able to work with for many, many years, whether it's helping to dry the Eaton's corn in Dry Creek in Tippah County, or Mitchell Scruggs and their cotton gin over in Saltillo. It's exciting. It really excites me just to be able to bring a product out there that has so much versatility, you know, in terms of what it does for families and businesses and farmers, but then also, you know, so much forward potential as well. And so another area, and it's funny, Rob mentioned it earlier, is on auto gas. And, you know, out at my grandfather's old barn, I think we've still got, you know, 3 propane-operated tractors, you know, that are from the 50s to the 70s. But, you know, you don't see a lot of that anymore, but there is beginning to be a resurgence in propane auto gas due to, you know, you know, propane's a clean fuel. You know, that's why they're using it in greenhouses. And that's also why, you know, it's beginning to have a resurgence, and especially so in some European countries where they're a little bit quicker adopters of that, even though we're the largest exporter of propane in the United States. And so that's a great fact right there too for everyone. Is, I mean, propane is you know, 98% American-made derived product. And we're the largest exporter of it in the world, and so that's, you know, something that we're really proud of. But auto gas, sorry, And so autogas, that was me. So autogas, that's a great opportunity for the industry. We run all of our propane bobtails on propane. We've been doing that since the 80s. And several other of our smaller trucks in our fleet are running on propane as well. And so as we see different incentives out there as well for setting up and establishing propane filling stations for auto gas, the hope is that it being a cleaner fuel, that it's something that will be adopted more. There's a lot of federal and state incentives for the conversion of school buses. And so I think there may be a couple of areas in Mississippi, a couple of school districts that are doing some of that now. And yeah, so I think that's going to be an interesting area to observe. But of course, with any change, I mean, there's going to be some hesitancy. I mean, of course, with propane being a compressed gas, it's not like you just go to the gas station and grip the handle and fuel's just kind of rolling out. It's pressurized. It's got to be secure, and we're actually testing a few different pieces of equipment just to ensure some of the safety before we roll some of this out in our footprint as well. And so that's a little bit about Coombs Gas, a little bit about propane, and some of the offerings. And so I might pause and see if there's any questions so far.
One of our colleagues in the House actually converted his truck to propane. He was back and forth from Manatee.
He's a smart man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, smart man. So yeah, it does burn cleaner, as you said.
Absolutely.
In the RV industry, we had gas generators and LP gas generators, and good thing about the LP gas, you did not have to worry about clogged carburetors or gumming up, and it just burned cleaner.
Right.
So that's good. Commissioner Carr, you have any?
Yeah, I have a few. So going back to another previous question, but from your standpoint, how do y'all, on the safety side, when you have a house fire or how do y'all handle that with the first responders? Are y'all in the loop? Do they contact y'all?
Typically, yeah, we'll typically receive contact, not all the time, but for instance, there was a house fire, unrelated to propane, but a house that we had a tank at, and we actually have a first responder, volunteer fireman on our team, and so we were able to be aware of that. But in other areas of the footprint, we do have circumstances where when the fire department get there, and especially if it's not a customer-owned tank and it's our tank, which we be sure to identify, they will pick up and call our number. And after hours, we have an emergency line that'll be connected to, but it's not occurring all the time.
So at night, if it's there's a fire and the responder comes up, so the fireman doesn't know that there's propane on the tank. He pulls it out. Is there any kind of reflector or anything that's on the house or at the mailbox to identify that there's propane at this house?
No, typically there's not going to be, an identifier or anything, but, whether you're on propane or natural gas, typically there's going to be an entry point at that house that, and speaking with some volunteer firemen, they're typically, trained to look for, whether it's a natural gas meter, and if it's not present, that there's the possibility that there is a propane tank. And so just like if there was natural gas connected to the house, they're typically going and cutting off the gas before that meter, or sometimes it may burn off and cause it to seal. And so, so in the absence of that, the only other option would be, unless they're fully electric, is that there's a propane tank that would need to be cut off.
Okay. So, and how does your company handle customer complaints and disputes between yourself and them?
Yeah, well, So, we're still a small company, and fortunately, we're blessed. We've got an incredible team of people, and we've got some very well-trained customer service representatives that work for our company, and they can resolve a lot of issues. Some of those will filter up to me to address as well, but we take customer complaints very, very seriously because, I view that as an opportunity to improve ourselves because if one person's got a complaint, you're usually going to have a lot more that have the same complaint. They just might not be calling in. And so we take some of that feedback and information and, we first, try to resolve what's right in front of us, but we also take a look from the perspective of, is there something else that we need to be doing as a company to prevent that from happening if we identify it as something that, needs to continue to be prevented?
So also too, and I noticed this on my tank, it's
Yeah.
1,000 gallon in the ground. So I walked out there and, normally it's right there by my shop. And so I raised the lid up to check it. Well, I don't have to do that anymore.
You got to
So
take
they
on.
got a signal that does the Wi-Fi and sends it out and lets them know where my tank's at. So when we have cold weather come in,
Yep.
and you have an individual that's a widow or a shut-in, how do y'all handle that? Is that, I didn't see any difference in my bill when they put that on there.
Right. So no, great question. And before I directly answer that, one thing to mention is, there have been, there's been so much technology and improvements over the last 10 years that have, come across any industry, but definitely there's been a lot within ours. And you've got stark difference on, some of the smaller, mom and pop type propane companies that may still be taking paper orders and everything. And truthfully, I think that, some of what's really helped us to continue on our growth journey is incorporating technology, upgrading our systems, our software, and tank monitors is a component of that. And so, initially, it may not make sense to just put a tank monitor on every single tank in your footprint because you do have customers that you can forecast. There's things that are used in our industry, such as a K-factor and degree day that monitors weather, and we can better predict how and where we need to go. Because I'd probably say approximately 30%, probably about 30% of our customers are on, an automatic fill basis. And so we're able to monitor that for most, but we've absolutely over the last 2 years been rolling out tank monitors, and it's not, we use certain kind of criteria to determine, is it a high user? Is it, someone that's kind of on the fringe of our footprint or difficult to get to? And we'll install a lot of tank monitors free of charge, on those customers because it helps us be more efficient, and it also helps avoid any, unnecessary after-hour emergencies if someone's going to run out.
So do y'all work with the local electrical utility? You're talking about generators. So if you have someone that they're at 30% or 10%, and the next day you're going to be there, or the next 2 or 3 days, but their power goes out and that generator kicks on. So are y'all in that loop to know when the power's out in that area?
Yeah, so we don't, to understand when the power is out, we don't necessarily work directly with the utility companies, but we got two things. Any generator that we install, and we've installed hundreds of them, if that customer's on propane, we're telling them, unless you got that tank monitor, hey, please, like if your generator starts to run, communicate with us, so we can be prepared. But then also we predominantly install Generac generators, and those generators can be connected to Wi-Fi or LTE, and so we're beginning to launch more of that, and that shows when that generator is running, when it needs to be serviced, if there's an issue, what that issue may be, and there's also a component in that program that does notify us of outages. We can look at a map within our program, and we can see that there's 200 homes out of power in Monroe County, at this point in time, and show kind of where those dense areas are.
So does that, y'all charge for that fee to monitor? The
Well,
generator?
it's kind of a component of a annual service plan for the generator.
So, from the regulatory side, how is the changing of the laws affecting your business as far as your profit margin at the end of the day?
Well, I wouldn't say that some of the specific changing of the laws, I wouldn't point to anything in particular, with the exception of, I wouldn't point to anything necessarily in particular, but I'd say over the past several years, there's been, greater emphasis in our industry on safety in general. And so, that's where I think that, the LC Gas Board in Mississippi does, or our LC Gas inspectors, I should say, do a really, really great job, not just of, inspecting, providing some of the training that's required, et cetera, but working with us on new jobs. For instance, one updated law that did go into effect I think just earlier this year in the NFPA 58 Code Book 2024 edition is on food trucks. And as Scotty mentioned earlier, this has been a really challenging situation, just kind of a lot of unknowns for installers working on these food trucks, for operators, for propane companies. And so there's finally some clarity. And now with that clarity, comes a lot of figuring things out. And so one of our customers that is a big provider of catering at Ole Miss football games, Butch Scott and Taylor Grocery, we worked with them this summer to make sure that we got it right. And Bo Thompson with the LC Gas division was incredibly helpful to make sure that we could get these new installs outfitted and down to exactly what it needs to be. And so I think that with new laws and regulations, there's been a lot that is 100% absolutely warranted, I think as well in our industry. A lot that, hey, we're already performing these steps and doing our duty to be safe. But with different regulations and laws and requirements, yes, I mean, we've added, staff to our company to handle more specific compliance-related areas. We've added additional training programs, safety programs, requirements and policies for our employees. Because the fact of the matter is that, yes, we're dealing with hazardous materials. And so many of these laws are just centered around safety. Now, there are some regulations, being discussed, like I mentioned, with the EPA and outlawing, maybe gas furnaces and, gas stoves. That's not really dealing with safety, in my opinion. And so that's a kind of complete different ball game.
Some of these may be redundant, Braxton, and I'm going to throw them at you anyway. What's the primary challenges you face as a propane business owner in Mississippi?
Well, if I think about our challenge, I mean, whether it's propane or any other company, there's always challenges. There's hiring and retention of employees, which we had challenges there a few years ago, but fortunately, I think that we're good to our team, and we do not have any type of retention issue, and have been very blessed in that fact. There's equipment challenges, cost of new equipment. You could buy a brand new bobtail 15 years ago for, $50,000, $60,000. Now they're $225,000, and so cost has been a really big concern, while also trying to price gas fairly. Just like today, most of the tanks that we set are 250-gallon propane tanks at a residence. That tank 8 years ago, I could go buy it for maybe about $500, and today that tank's $1,400.
What's driving that, you think? Is it regulatory atmosphere or just
I think
inflationary
it could be
factors?
part of that. I think that part of it, truthfully, is and during COVID, a lot of prices went up, and a lot of prices also didn't come back down after that. But labor costs are up. I mean, you know, you look at businesses and what, you know, employees were being paid 5 years ago versus today, and it's a stark difference. And so there's a lot of influencers in that. But I would say that labor is probably a big driver in that regard. But you know, the other you know, and one of the challenges too, just kind of in overall, is propane, and that's where, you know, we're absolutely focusing a lot on commercial growth within our company. But in residential, you know, the fact of the matter is that natural gas pipeline, you know, continues to expand. You know, it's an option for consumers. You know, it can be used, and so for us, you know, our you know, part of our strategy is continued expansion. You know, to where we can go and serve other markets. And the great thing that we've noticed is, you know, we're not a huge company. You know, there's some huge players out there, and you know, eventually, you know, and what we see with a lot of people coming to us for our services is just the quality of service. You know, the people that they're speaking with, just kind of that personal touch, as opposed to, you know, being a number out there, or having to wait, you know, 30 days to get your gas or service or something to that effect. So we're working through that.
Which, I know you kind of touched on this, but if you can maybe elaborate a little more, the recent innovations or technologies you've adopted in your business.
Yeah. So that's something that's been really exciting. And so, you know, again, I purchased a company 6 years ago. We had a lot of manual processes, you know, on our routing, and it was very dependent upon knowledge of the drivers. And, you know, the shift that you see in our industry is you do have you know, propane, it's I guess you'd call it an old industry. You know, there's a lot of older people still in this industry. And now, you know, as we continue to move forward and you have people retire, and with the younger generation, you know, you just don't have a whole lot of people these days that spend 30 years at a company, or 20 years at a company, or even 5 years at a company. And so we looked at it from the perspective of, well, what do we need to do to where, you know, this guy's been with us 20 years and that's great, and he knows when, you know, Miss Sally down the road needs her gas, but this new guy is not. And so we've operated to where, you know, we've updated our software, also our tablets and equipment and trucks, to where we can better forecast demand and build effective routes. You know, we have based on our gas orders that come through and get diverted to different trucks based on their geography. We've got computers in those trucks that automatically kind of GPS route to build efficient routes. That's been a real big game changer for us over the last several years, you know, reducing miles and wear and tear on our equipment. And also the tank monitors. That's wonderful. Any commercial account, we're putting tank monitors on, and we're putting a lot of tank monitors on residential accounts now, just depending on certain criteria. And so those have been probably two of the biggest technology enhancements or investments that we've been making that are helping us.
Do I have a tank monitor?
Huh?
Do I have a tank monitor?
You don't have a tank yet.
But yeah, so yeah, I appreciate you setting that tank. Yeah, to kind of piggyback off what Commissioner Carr said, do y'all suggest in ground as opposed to above ground, or what's the pros and cons of both of those?
It's, you know, I don't suggest either really. For me, you know, underground tanks, you know, comes down to you don't want a tank, you know, out in your yard. The one thing that you have to do regarding underground tanks, though, which is additional, you have to do cathodic testing of the soil about every 3 years, because depending on the soil type, you know, there is an opportunity for, you know, rust, et cetera, to occur, and you can have an issue. We don't see a whole lot of issues with that, at least in our region. And then an above ground tank, you know, the plus on that is it's there, you can see it. You know, if there was a defect in the tank, you know, you're probably more likely to identify that, you know, one of our personnel that's going out there.
On, what's the most common customer concern or issues related to propane, and how do you address it,
Most common concern
or issue?
or issue? Well, it's running out of gas.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that to where we've got a ton of customers that run out of gas, but, you know, we have offerings of tank monitors, you know, depending on usage, that may be a free service, you know, as well as forecasting, but we have customers that they want to call for their gas. And so many times those customers call
Forget
when
to
they
call.
are out. And then it's an emergency.
And then you got to go back and light pilot lights, and you got to do all that
Exactly,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. So it's a pretty cumbersome process.
What role does well, you addressed that one, so I'll go to the next one. How do you see the future of propane industry evolving, and what are your plans to adapt? Again, you already kind of touched on that, obviously, but anything else you want to add?
Yeah. So, you know, I think propane is a very versatile fuel. And so with that versatility, I think that we're going to see more and more options in the future.
Mr. Lowe, so you could run your weed eater on it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I tell you what, I remember years ago, my grandfather had a propane weed eater in our office. And look, I'd recommend a lot of stuff on propane, but probably not a weed eater because of that tank that does attach to it. But if you're in the market for a propane weed eater, I'm sure we could find you one.
Okay, I'll talk to you later about that. The last question I've got, what partnerships or collaborations have been beneficial in your business?
Yeah. So one, you know, and again, I think this is a testament to our LC Gas team. Is they offer a collaborative, they're a collaborative group. And so the two primary inspectors that we deal with in our region, you know, Rusty and Bo, they're wonderful. They will, you know, it's more about, it's not a, you know, and just like I tell, you know, both of them, if we've made a mistake on our end, we want to know about it, and we want to educate our team, and we want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And they're great, if anything ever does come up, that we're working together to figure out the right solution if it is something that's, you know, in a gray area. Also on several of our, you know, suppliers or product partners, you know, collaborating during, you know, National Propane Gas Association events, Mississippi Propane Gas Association events. I don't know. Propane, there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of people involved in the industry, but it still seems like a closely knit group, and everyone's just very receptive to help and assist. So it's been great. It's been a great industry to be a part of over the last several years.
You're the beneficiary of having that tribal knowledge, but some foresight to try to expand it and grow it. And as a small business owner, as a fellow small business owner, I always used your approach. I don't want anybody upset. Yeah. If we failed, we need to fix it, and those go into sometimes how you overall conduct business to make sure that those things don't happen again. So I appreciate small business owners and what you do for the state of Mississippi, and what you do for our customers, and soon what you're going to. I mean, I look forward to being a customer. So. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Great. Well, again, thank you all so much for having me, and I think it's great that y'all have taken the initiative to, you know, get an industry that may not necessarily, you know, who knows? We'll see how many calls and everything that you get, but I think it's a great step just to get folks together to help to educate others in this regard. So thank you all for that.
Well, I, for one, have learned quite a bit, and thank you for participating. I want to thank Mr. Love and Mr. Cuevas as well. It's been and I learned very educational summit. So again, thank you for participating, and any closing remarks? You good?
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks again, and hope to see you both again soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it, Braxton. And with that, it concludes our summit. So thank you all so much for coming. And I guess the next one, Commissioner Carr, is our next summit is nuclear. When is it, Steve? October 24th. Does that make sense? Anyway, we'll be putting out the information for the next summit. It'll be on nuclear energy. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.